Hello again, friends, and welcome into another edition of Wrestling with Rusty right here on YouTube. The first one of the new year for January 5th, 2026. Let me do some housekeeping measures before I get started. Please remember to like the video on the channel. Subscribe to the channel if you hadn't done so already. Tell your friends to subscribe to the channel. If you need to reach me, you can call me at 724-826-0449. 724-826-0449. No texting, please. If you need to email me, you can email me at rusty, R-U-S-T-Y, .loudermilk, LOUDERMILK, at yahoo.com. You must put a dot between the first name and the last name. Otherwise, it will not go through. Rusty.loudermilk at yahoo.com. Now, I found out about this a couple days ago, and I'm just getting around to putting this video out. But it happened back on September the 8th, 2025. But his wife just found my number through some troubles and called me. Longtime professional wrestler Chuck Coates, who wrestled on the independent circuit as Mad Maxx. And he was also one of the German stormtroopers in South Atlantic Pro Wrestling, and many other characters on the independent circuit. And he wrestled at NWA and WWF and WCW as enhancement talent / jobber talent. Chuck Coates was his real name, and he wrestled under his real name when he did jobs for NWA, WCW, and WWF. More importantly than that, back in 2001, when I did the bad guy manager in a wheelchair gimmick for a North Carolina-based independent promotion called CWF, which stood for Carolina Wrestling Federation, ran by a guy named Jeff Rudd, who went under the name the Gemini Kid. Chuck Coates was part of that promotion, and Chuck Coates was one of the guys that knew that I had never done that before. I knew I would do okay, but a lot of other people didn't want a real guy in a wheelchair doing a bad guy manager in a wheelchair, since I really was in a wheelchair. And Chris Galagos says, so sad. I don't like AEW. AEW sucks like shit. I like old school. I miss the old school wrestling. I do too, Chris. But anyway, back to Chuck. Chuck was one of the first people that came over to me and introduced himself, and was nice to me. And we kept in contact for a little bit. Then we lost contact with one another. And I recently had gotten back in touch with him and was going to interview him for this channel. And I called him and left a voicemail on his real job at the Durham, North Carolina Rescue Mission. He was some type of counselor there at the Durham, North Carolina Rescue Mission. And Happy New Year to you too, Chris. But the point I'm trying to make is we didn't make connection on getting Chuck Coates on the air, and I didn't understand why, because Chuck gave me his number and said he'd be glad to be interviewed and everything, and then I didn't hear back. So I thought, well, maybe he got busy because of the new year and everything else. And then a couple of nights ago, his widow / wife, Cynthia Lucas Chandler Coates, who I have never met, called me and said, I know my husband was supposed to interview with you. I found his your number in his cell phone, and I wanted to tell you that he passed away. So for those of you that knew Chuck Coates or knew of the Mad Maxx character or any of the other characters that he did throughout the Southeast in the NWA, WCW, and WWF, as well as the independent circuit throughout North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Alabama, you would probably know who Chuck Coates is even if you don't recognize the name. So I'd like to send my thoughts and prayers and condolences to Chuck Coates, Cynthia Lucas Chandler Coates, and any member of the Coates family or friends of Chuck Coates, past, present, or future. Chuck was a good man. I was honored to know him. I'm sorry I did not get to stay in contact with him better. When I moved to Pittsburgh, we kind of lost contact. And he was in North Carolina, specifically Raleigh, North Carolina. He was an avid North Carolina State Wolfpack fan, both basketball, football, and anything North Carolina State. So I know he's up there with Jim Valvano right now, probably laughing and joking, waiting for North Carolina State season to start again. But from a wrestling perspective, Chuck Coates was not only a good wrestler that unfortunately did not get his big break, but he was a really, really nice guy. And if you knew Chuck Coates, you would understand what I'm trying to say. People that are nice in this world are rare, and people that are nice in the wrestling business are even more rare. And if you had the privilege to know Chuck Coates like I did and many others, you would know that Chuck Coates was a great man. And I'm not just saying this because it usually is said during one of these death notifications, but the world really lost a good man, and the pro wrestling industry lost a good man in Chuck Coates. I'll miss you, Chuck. Thank you for your kindness to me. And thank you for all you did for the wrestling business, even though you didn't get the big break like a John Cena or somebody like that. Rest in peace, Chuck Coates, Mad Maxx, Jorman Stormtroopers, and many other gimmicks throughout the wrestling industry. Check Chuck Coates out on YouTube. Some of his matches in the WWF, WCW, and NWA. Chuck Coates' matches are on YouTube, and you'll see what kind of a good wrestler he was, even though he never made it big in pro wrestling. I'll miss you, Chuck. I love you, my brother. And I know one day, if I'm lucky enough to make it to heaven, I'll see you again. He always kidded me about being a North Carolina Tar Heel fan, and he was an NC State fan, so we had kind of a rivalry there. But anyway, I'll miss you, Chuck. I love you, brother, and Godspeed. Rest in peace, Chuck Coates. Gone but not forgotten. That's going to do it for me, Rusty. I'm out of here. We'll see you next time with another edition of Wrestling with Rusty right here on YouTube, hopefully with some better news. And until we meet again, my friends, as the voice of AEW, Ian Riccaboni would say, happy wrestling, everybody. Rest in peace, Chuck Coates. Gone but not forgotten. Thank you, everybody.